Hello and welcome to the Downseller Studio YouTube channel. My name is Jen, also known as Boston Jen on Ravelry and Boston Jen 1 on Instagram. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back, and if you are new to the channel, welcome. You are joining me here in my closet today, and I am here because I'm going to do a review of my finished Ursa sweater and a review of the yarn that I used, and I'm gonna change it up and try on some different outfits. So I figured this would be the best place to do this. I have some notes here because I don't want to forget to tell you anything important. The sweater that I'm reviewing is the Ursa Sweater by Jacqueline Cieslak, and the yarn that I've used is Kraemer Fiber Mills, and it is their Mauch chunky base. So those are the two things that I'm here to talk about with you today. So settle on in and let's get to chatting. All right, if you are not familiar with the Ursa pattern, it is a chunky, oversized cropped sweater. As you can see here, it's an $8 knitting pattern. It's available on Ravelry and on PayHip. So if Ravelry is not a safe site for you, there is an option where you can purchase this pattern. It calls for a 34 to 66 inch finished bust, so it's got a great range of size options, which I think is wonderful. And it calls for 450 to 950 yards of bulky weight yarn. So I think it's a pretty good range there between the sizes and how much yarn you'd need, which I think can be sort of affordable if knitting on a budget is something that is a requirement in your life, which is totally great. So let me back up and just show you the sweater a little bit more. It has this beautiful detail down the center, and I apologize, it is just a little bit wrinkled here today. And then this half brioche pattern extends out to create this triangle that repeats on the back as well. And then it also goes down the underarm and down the sides, which is a really beautiful effect. I will tell you that I found the pattern very easy to work and the instructions very clear, and there's also a lot of great detail about how to modify things for your body, and especially if you're not interested in the cropped look, on how you can make this longer. It would be a very simple modification to make. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the yarn. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, something I want to tell you is that this yarn was provided to me for free for my review by Kraemer Yarns through Stitchcraft Marketing, so thank you very much for that. As always, any opinions that I share here or on the Downseller Studio audio podcast will always be my honest, candid opinions, so you can trust that, that I'll always share the truth with you. I have no interest in lying to you about the products that I use. So this Mauch chunky yarn, let me just show you the label here. It is a bulky weight yarn. It's a single ply, and it has 60% New Zealand wool, 40% domestic wool, although I'm not sure if this has changed over time, because I think perhaps now all of this wool is from the United States and it is milled in Pennsylvania, which I think is wonderful. It is a singles yarn. Let me just close up on the yarn for you there. And they blend several different colors together in the roving so that you get this beautiful richness of color. And you can see that in the finished product. There's a lot of sort of depth of color. This is the Juju fruit colorway. I really like it. It is, I would say it leans purple, but it kind of has the mauve-y, pink and gray kind of heathered looks in here. And as you can tell from behind me, I wear a lot of these colors. So I think it's wonderful that it's a more complex color that picks up lots of different tones. And then in terms of what you get for one skein of yarn, it's 120 yards or 110 meters for 100 grams. And it's $8.50 per ball, which I think is very reasonable, especially for the fact that it's made in the United States. Now, for this sweater, I ended up using 5 balls of this yarn. So that cost, if I had paid for the yarn myself, which I did not, it would cost me $42.50. I think that is an incredible value. And even if you made the largest size in the pattern, that would call for 7 skeins. that would cost you $59.50. So again, you might choose to make it bigger, or you might choose to make it longer, or you might need longer sleeves or something like that. But with my swatch, I used just under the 5 skeins of yarn. I did not add any length in the body. So I think that it's a great value, and especially again, if you're on a budget, I think this would be a really good option. There are also a ton of colors. I think it's upwards of 40 different colors that they offer, and they're coming out with more. Okay, let's talk about the sweater itself, the sizing and all of that stuff, and then I'm going to try on some different outfits for you. So I cast on for the size 3 in this pattern, which calls for a finished bust circumference of 42 inches. And I chose that size thinking that I was a 36 bust. I'm not. I'm much closer to a 34. So while the sweater calls for 2 to 6 inches of positive ease, I was already going to have more than that. And then as it turns out, my swatch wasn't completely accurate. I probably should have done a larger swatch. I ended up getting not the 11.5 stitches per 4 inches that it calls for. I ended up getting closer to 10 stitches per 4 inches. And so my sweater is bigger than the size 3 finished bust circumference. So my sweater is 44 inches at the bust, and I am 34 inches at the bust. So I have 10 inches of positive ease. So my sweater is 10 inches larger than I am in this spot, and it is bigger at the bottom than it is on the top, which I think is just a fact of the brioche, and that's totally fine. But mine is, let's see if I wrote it down. I think it's about 50 inches at the bottom. So that is why my sweater is the size that it is. I do think that it is a little bit too big for me, but that is not going to stop me from wearing it. The only modifications that I made to the pattern is that I decreased the sleeves faster than was called for. So I got my decreases in before the bottom of the sleeve, and I did more decreases. So I decreased so that my finished sleeve is 3 stitches smaller than what's called for in the pattern. So my sleeves are probably a little bit more fitted than you might see in some of the other pictures, but I like the idea of a slimmer sleeve with a bigger body. And so I'm very happy with that part. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about fit. If you tuned into the most recent episode of the Downseller Studio podcast, I believe it's episode 203, I talked about when I first tried on this sweater when it was finished, I really didn't like it, and I wasn't sure that I was going to wear it, and I debated giving it away. And part of that is that it is so big up here, and when I have my arms down, there is quite a bit of extra fabric here, and I'm not sure that that is all that flattering. And you know, I think our ideas of what's flattering are based on what society tells us. And for women, that's often that you need to appear as small as possible. And I'm not completely on board with that. But it is a thought that still goes through our heads, right? And so as I talked about it in the podcast episode, and I'll share here, when I put it on and looked in the mirror, that was my initial thought. And then I took pictures from different angles, and I found that from certain angles, I really did like it. And then I took a video of myself dancing around, wearing my sweater and looking at myself from all different angles. And I thought, that looks great. And you know what? That was a really good lesson, because in life, we are not a static image. We're not standing still. People aren't looking at us from only that angle where the camera is. And so I think we need to ease up. That's my suggestion for you, is don't just put it on, take one picture and decide it's good or it's bad. But rather to look at it from different angles and see what you think. And, you know, categorically, this compared to all of my other sweaters, does this one make me look the most slim? Maybe not, but that doesn't need to be the only thing that makes a sweater good. I think the sweater is beautiful. I'm proud of myself for knitting it. I love the colors, and it's warm and cozy, and the design is gorgeous, and it's good, and I'm going to wear it. So this is one of the outfits that I will wear with this sweater. Let me tip this so you can see. I tend to wear a lot of leggings and long tunics And I think this is a great option. I got this beautiful necklace when I was in San Francisco a few years ago, so this will definitely be an outfit that I will wear with this, but let me show you a few other options. All right, this is another option. At first it's going to look the same, but this is a short sleeve instead of a long sleeve, and it's not a tunic, it's just a regular t-shirt length top with some skinny jeans. So this is another option. I wore this with some low boots and got a lot of compliments the first time I wore it. So this is another great option. Let me show you something else. This is not terribly different, but I do think it looks a little bit different when you put a lighter color with it. And I do like the look of the lighter color peeking out from underneath. Let's see what else we can come up with. This time I've changed it up and added some lighter colored jeans. These are a light gray. These are from Madewell. And I think that this really kind of lightens it up and almost gives it a more sort of transitional, like move into spring, even though it's a warmer sweater. It doesn't make it seem so dark with the lighter colors with it. I tend to like these really long necklaces. This one I picked up on a trip to Florida, but it's got these beautiful crystally kind of beads. And I think, again, it kind of lightens it up a little bit. So this is a fun look. Okay, my last one here might be a little bit outside the box, but I've really enjoyed wearing my overalls during COVID and being more at home and on a cozy winter weekend. Throwing this on with my overalls, I think is something that I would totally do. And I would wear this out of the house, don't get me wrong, too. But even if you aren't super comfortable wearing overalls out of the house, A, maybe rethink that, but B, I think it works. You do have to tuck it in quite a bit because it's obviously bigger than is meant to tuck in here. But yeah, I think I like it. I had tried it on over a dress and I didn't enjoy that look because the neck on this comes up pretty high. People have different feelings about whether necklines should match up. This one came up really high and I didn't enjoy how much of that gray you were seeing. But if that doesn't bother you, you could definitely wear it over just like a shift dress or something like that. I think there are a lot of good options, but this is just a few different ways that I'm going to choose to style this sweater, and I wanted to share that with you. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this is the Ursa Sweater by Jacqueline Cieslak, and I used Kraemer yarns Mauch Chunky for the yarn. I give them both a very enthusiastic 2 thumbs up. I would very much knit this again, ideally to a slightly smaller size so that I had less than 10 inches of positive ease at my bust. And I will definitely use this yarn again. In fact, I already have something in the works. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to check them both out. And if you have any comments or questions for me, I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video or think it would be helpful, feel free to share it with a friend or subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.